When Kim Potter shot Daunte Wright, she said, I'm going to prison. I'm going to prison. Well, she is almost headed to prison. Today, the jury delivered their verdict guilty on 2 counts of manslaughter charges. This is what happened in the courtroom today in Minnesota.
I'm now going to read your verdicts as it will appear in the permanent court records of Hennepin County. In the matter of State of Minnesota versus Kimberly Potter, court file number 27 CR 21 7490, we, the jury, on the charge of manslaughter in the first degree while committing a misdemeanor on or about April 11, 2021, in Hennepin County, State of Minnesota, find the defendant guilty. And the verdict was agreed to at the hour of 11:40 a.m. and signed by the jury person on 12/23/21. The verdict on count 2 is we, the jury, on the charge of manslaughter in the second degree, culpable negligence on or about April 11, 2021, in Hennepin County, State of Minnesota, find the defendant guilty. And that verdict was agreed to at 10:30 a.m. on 12/21/21. Members of the jury, is this your true and correct verdict? So say you one, and so say you all.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, you may be seated. All right, I am now going to poll the jury. Juror number 2, is this your true and correct verdict?
It is.
Juror number 6, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes, it is.
Juror number 7, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes, it is.
Juror number 13, is this your true and correct verdict? Oh, it's juror 11. And juror 17, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 19, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 21, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 22, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 26, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 40, is your true and correct verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 48, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes.
And juror number 55, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes, it is.
Members of the jury, when you first came into the courtroom, I told you that jurors are the heroes of our judicial system. Well, the 12 of you are our heroes in this case. You might remember that there was a question on the questionnaire that asked whether you wanted to be on this jury. You were to check yes, no, or maybe. A number of you checked no or not sure, and a few of you checked all 3. But when I asked each of you if you would be willing to serve if the party selected you as a juror, you all said yes. You said yes even though we are in a pandemic with Omicron spreading in our community. You said yes even though you had concerns about serving given the nature of the case. You said yes even though you knew you would be sequestered during deliberations and away from your loved ones. And you said yes even though there was a chance that this case could have lasted past Christmas. You were willing to sacrifice much because you believed in our justice system. And then you went into deliberations and each of you brought with you
All
your
right, Keenan, we could
common
bail out of
sense,
that. That was
individual
the
perspective.
judge again speaking to the jury after they rendered their verdict. I want to go to my panel, Matt Manning. He is a trial attorney. He joins us right now, civil rights attorney. Also joining us, Bernarda Villalona. She's going to be with us in a moment, senior trial counsel of the George Jackson Law Firm. Also joining us right now is Angie Porter, research fellow and adjunct professor at Georgetown University Law Center. She also was a prosecutor there in Minnesota. Glad to have all of you on the show. First and foremost, let's start. Let's start here. Initially, first of all three of you, were any of you surprised with this verdict? That you believe that this jury, after initially sending out their comment to the judge, that they were going to that at least one person was going to allow her to walk?
So I'll tell you this, I was surprised by the verdict in the sense of, so let's just be clear. So Roland, what happened is that Monday, of course, they closed, jury instructions was given. They were allowed to deliberate for a couple hours. Then they returned on Tuesday. Tuesday morning, we know now that they had a verdict as to manslaughter in the second degree as to culpable negligence, because that verdict was reached at 10:30 in the morning on Tuesday. And then they sent out a hung note. I would call it a hung note in terms of they wouldn't be able to reach a decision, but they never made it clear or gave us any leeway in terms of learning what their split was. But we now know what they were stuck on was the reckless homicide, the manslaughter in the first degree. And that's what they were stuck on. And eventually they were able to go over the hurdle and find her guilty of manslaughter in the first degree. But despite, for us, it doesn't matter how much evidence exists. Anytime there's an officer that is on trial, we always have that pause and those butterflies when we hear there's a verdict, because there is no guarantee that there will be a conviction.
Matt?
I am kind of surprised, if I'm honest, Roland. I'm surprised because I thought, as she just spoke to, I thought the intent would really be the difficult thing for them to get over. And I thought because of how police officers are frankly given so much benefit of the doubt, I thought that the jury might come back on the side of it was just a mistake, and therefore the intentionality that's required under the statute was not met. It sounds like Mr. Frank and his team, and Mr. Ellison really and his team, did a bang up job of really proving their indictment. So I'm not surprised by the caliber of their work. But when you get down to thorny issues as it relates to a police officer and intent, it's always a difficult issue. And I was surprised that it came down as forcefully as it did on both counts.
Angie?
Thanks, Roland. Juries are unpredictable. So I entertained every possibility. I thought it would be either a hung jury or a guilty verdict based on my close review of the trial. And sort of reading the tea leaves of their jury questions. I know they seem like they might have been close to deadlocked, but they also asked a question about whether they could hold the gun, which showed me they were really carefully deliberating about the distinctions between the Glock and the taser. So I was sort of leaning that they might find guilty on at least one of the charges, and sort of predicted that after we knew it wasn't a hung jury.
One of the things that we have to look at here is that, again, we got to give some credit to Attorney General Keith Ellison. Initially, the prosecutors were only going to pursue manslaughter 2. When the state stepped in, they added manslaughter 1. You were a prosecutor in that state, Angie. I think we cannot underestimate, the role that Keith Ellison's team played, because these prosecutors were also involved in the conviction of Derek Chauvin.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Elections matter. Attention to who the state attorney is really matters. And I think initially we were worried about whether they would charge this case and how they would charge it. We had a Pete Orput, I believe, was the attorney on the case, and they pushed to get Keith Ellison on it. And he really pulled it together exactly how he pulled together that team in the Chauvin trial. So it is so helpful that he is there. We might not have seen this result without his presence.
The thing that I think really stands out here, Joey, is that you look at this conviction, Derek Chauvin, you look at Jason Van Dyke in jail as well. The protest that we have seen over the last decade is having a mark and it is changing the public's perception of how we hold police accountable for their actions. Joy, did you hear me? Joy, did you hear me? Matt, did you hear me?
I did, yes. And I do think you're right.
Go right ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I think you're right. I think the political pressure and the social pressure that's on is really requiring prosecutors to not only be nuanced, but to do their absolute best to make sure that they put forth a true case and not sweeping things under the rug. So I do think that pressure is having a demonstrable effect on what we're seeing. But I also think that it's still extremely difficult to prosecute a police officer who commits a crime in the line of duty. I've prosecuted hundreds of cases, and this would be among the most difficult I've prosecuted. So I don't want to undersell really the acumen of Mr. Ellison and his team, because I really think they've done a bang-up job in both cases, which are difficult by the very nature that they have occurred while a police officer was on duty.
Bernardo, what should other DAs be learning from this trial and from the Chauvin trial with the work of the Minnesota Attorney General's office?
So, Roland, aside from learning, is that what these other prosecutors have to have is the courage. Have the courage to actually bring charges if you see that charges are fit in a certain case, because that's the first step right there, the problem that we have. In terms of prosecutors, we know that prosecutors have an enormous amount of power. If the prosecutor can determine whether someone's arrested, the prosecutor can determine what charges, if any, someone should face. So in terms of the prosecutor who represents the people of any given county, they're supposed to be the word and the face for the people, is that if there's an issue, there's a crime that is committed, you put it before the jury or a grand jury for them to make a decision as to what actually happened, as opposed to taking it away and not giving the people the opportunity to make a decision. And that's why it's even more important that these cases are televised, is because for there to be any kind of confidence in our criminal justice system, there has to be transparency. And that's what we were able to see by having this trial televised, and for us to see how the criminal justice system actually works. But in terms of prosecutors, you need to have courage, and you need to be able to step forward when there's an issue that arises, so there can be trust in the community.
One of the things that we saw a whole lot of histrionics, no tears, coming off of that stand from Kim Potter. She came to court today with her Mr. Rogers sweater on again, and anybody surprised that this was her reaction, which was pretty much no reaction at all once she heard guilty?
Roland, we saw her true demeanor today when that verdict came out. When that verdict came out, there were no tears. There was no crying. If anything, you saw her face turn a little bit red. But also what I noticed different from when she testified. Remember when she testified, she actually had a chain with a crucifix on. She didn't have that on today. Aside from, just goes to show you the performance that she put on for that jury when she actually testified. But we also saw a Jekyll Hyde effect, because doing direct, she was a completely different person that she was doing cross-examination. And I think that was so telling for that jury, because her true emotions that you saw was on that video and body-worn camera when she was actually distraught. But her terms of being distraught, I think it's because it actually happened, not because she actually took someone's life. She's like, oh my God, I'm going to jail.
Angie, it was also very good to see the judge say no. She was not going to depart from what normally happens. She was going to remand her into custody with no bail and not allowing her to go home for Christmas.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I really thought that Judge Chu did a great job throughout this trial. And, it's gracious to call me a Minnesota prosecutor. I prosecuted for a very short time for the city of Minneapolis, but the majority of my career was spent as a commercial attorney, appearing before various judges in different courts. So I've seen a range, but I thought that Judge Chu represented a really even keel, deliberate, and careful judge. And I think that it's funny that female judges get the reputation, or female leaders in general get the reputation of being emotional, but she's the judge who has been the most cool as a cucumber of all these judges we've seen. all these male judges we've seen in these high profile cases for the Black community. So I think that really raises the question about who these judges are and what they can bring from their identity, and really sort of suggests that we should be more attentive to judicial appointments and judicial elections across the country.
Matt, final comment.
I think both of those sisters are exactly right. And again, I just echo my sentiments that I've prosecuted and defended hundreds of cases. I think it's very hard to prosecute a police officer who was in the line of his or her duty. And I think that Attorney General Ellison and his team should really be commended because they did a stand-up job. All
right. I want to thank all three of you for joining us to talk about your reaction to the Kim Potter guilty verdicts.
All right, folks, back to that Roland Mark Unfiltered video in just one moment.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?